This is Deadzone the podcast presents
Warzone Eternal.
Welcome to the Deadzone podcast. Deadzone is the sci-fi tabletop.
All right, welcome to another episode of Warzone Eternal, brought to you by Deadzone the podcast. I'm your host, Rick, along with
Alex.
and
Ricktok.
how you guys doing?
Spectacular.
I'm really tired, man.
Oh, man. It's a late summer in Michigan, which means like the sun doesn't set until 10:30 at night. And yeah, Rick's feeling it.
Because I see the
Because
sun
you see the
often.
sun, all of it.
Yeah, always.
Well, I mean, you get the sliver of it, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also like recovering from Gencon.
Yeah, exactly. Which is funny because I've
It's
already
been almost
talked
2
to
weeks.
you about Gencon. You still sound the same.
Yeah.
Hey, they say Gen Con's the best 4 days in gaming for a reason. It takes a lot out of you.
Oh, I'm sure.
It does.
So what all did you have going on at Gen Con, Alex?
So we're talking about,
All of the above.
so personal.
Yeah.
So I think I've mentioned on this before. Like, this was my 30th Gen Con.
Holy crap.
Holy crap! Yes, I was.
I still haven't been to one.
I was but a wee lad the first time I went.
Yep.
So no, at this point right now, it's a lot of my reason for going to Gen Con is seeing friends that I only see at Gen Con. I got a buddy, shout out to Morgan, comes in from Australia every year just for the show.
Right on.
Well, I mean, to see us, right?
Well, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so a lot of it's to see friends that I only see then, and just really, I mean, soak in the atmosphere, right? When you've been to the show a ton of times and you kind of generally understand what the kind of the pulse is, right?
Yeah.
Like what just how things operate, where things are located, then part of it is just missing, having that in your life.
Yeah.
So going to Gen Con is I could probably just go to Gen Con, I guess I'm saying, and just sit on a bench in the middle of the convention center and be like, yep, okay, this is worth it. So yeah, no, it's seeing friends, playing some games, checking out the exhibitors hall, right? The exhibitors hall is absolutely enormous. Yeah, and if you actually give every publisher there at least a little bit of your time to check out what they're doing,
Yeah.
it's like a two-day adventure to walk through the entire thing and actually feel like you've seen everything there.
Wow.
I can legitimately say I spent 98% of my time at the show in the vendor hall, and I did not see everything.
Absolutely.
That's nuts.
Yep.
I mean, I personally have a hard enough time seeing everything at Adepticon.
Yeah, sure.
I know that's a much smaller scale.
Oh, I mean,
Significantly smaller.
love Adepticon, but yeah, Adepticon doesn't even take up a small corner of Gen Con.
So, Rick, your trip at Gen Con was business as well, right?
Yeah, mine was almost
Exclusively.
exclusively business. Yeah.
What were you doing there?
Shaking hands with publishers, trying to land some as sponsors for different things that I'm doing, and also, trying to just maintain relationships that I have with different publishers. That if I'm currently working on projects with them, are they happy with the work that we're doing? Can we expand upon that work?
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. And then, I like Alex just said, I haven't gone 30 times. I've gone quite a few times, but there is something to be said about the people watching.
Yep.
Right, that occurs at Gen Con. And this isn't like the people watching you would do at a mall where you're just like, oh, look at that person wearing that stuff, whatever, or how you put on your judging hat.
Yeah.
Right. At this one, it's like, man, they're sleeping in a line at 3 a.m. for Lorcana.
Oh, God.
This is Gen Con.
Yep.
That was nuts.
It's my Gen Con.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, no, the Lorcana stuff was incredible.
It was
watch.
nuts. Yeah. And then, of course, all the things that are like the staples of recognition. Card Holla is super cool. So Card Holla, for those that don't know, is they take a bunch of CCGs, like bulk, whatever, that are donated to this thing, to this event, and then they build card castles.
Oh, okay,
and
okay.
towers and
Now,
all the-
I remember seeing the pictures a few years
And
ago.
on Saturday evening, someone they bid on who gets to throw the first coin to knock it down to begin it. And then, that goes for like $500, $600, $700,
Oh, wow.
right? And then everybody around, after the first coin has been tossed, and then they basically say, all right, go at it. Everybody just takes all their loose change and just destroys this thing. And it's glorious.
And to be clear, like, when Rick's talking about they build like card castles, the tallest one is like 15 feet tall.
Right.
And the whole thing, they cordon off an area that's about 20 feet deep and probably 50 feet
50
wide.
to 60 feet wide, yeah.
It's just enormous. and you're allowed all weekend. You come in, you're like, cool, I opened up some Magic packs, and I've got 32 new lands that I don't need. Go over to Card Hollow, fold them all up, and build my own little domicile.
Yeah. Yeah. One year I donated like 20 monster boxes of Magic Bolt.
Oh,
yeah. They're like, we're going to use this for a couple years. But they raised, I think they raised a little over $3,000 or maybe $4,000 this year. And it all goes for charity, of course.
Very cool.
Right. So that's one of those things that it's just a staple. And then they have the big balloon sculpture that they also they destroy and do for charity. So that's one of the things about Gen Con that I think is really cool is all the charitable works that they support through some really awkward and fun ways. Yeah.
Yep. No, absolutely. I had a longtime friend. Him and he and his daughter came to Gen Con for the first time, and I've been telling him for years, like, this is what Gen Con is. This is what Gen Con is. And when you do that for long enough, you know you've created something that could never actually live up to the expectation. So I checked in on them on Thursday, the first day of the convention, about noon. I was like, oh my God.
You undersold
Yes, it is more than we anticipated it to be. So it's amazing. I mean, the amount of stuff that goes on there. You stumble into some corner of some hotel that's associated with the convention. Like, wait, what is going on here?
Right.
And there's
Really?
it's glorious. Yes.
glorious.
Gen Con is the greatest thing on
in our space.
and I would say in my space, period. I'm not even talking about the gaming space.
Just your space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know, this and maybe, the first week of Spartan football. That's it. All right.
Wow. Those are two different like dynamics.
Very,
They are.
cool.
But, what has always been awesome is Gen Con is in the beginning of August, and August ends with college football kicking off. So it's like, man, August is
It's
just
your month.
Oh, but yeah, but otherwise it's just, it's hot and all the grass is dead, and it's kind of like, okay, summer, you've worn out your welcome.
Right.
Like, okay, but I'll give you these two things. Okay, you can stay as long.
Okay.
So, Rick, it was all work for you, but that's also play for you.
It is. So that is my play
Yeah.
for sure. But I will say this: one of the other things that I thought was super fun about Gen Con this year is that now that I know Alex and some of his crew, it was interesting. One night I was walking from the convention center back to my hotel room, and I was in the JW Marriott.
I think the greatest part about the story is watching Alex's face.
Oh, it's because I ran into Alex and his game group, the Australian gentleman, and
okay.
the guy who bikes.
Yep. Yeah, Don, Rich from Rat Trap Games. Yeah.
And they had the pleasure of me being slap happy, like sleepy, and you know how we have pre-show stuff that's like, oh, I wish we could talk about this stuff, but we can't. They got a full blast for like a half hour.
Yeah, I think a couple of these people who had just met Rick, they were like, "Oh, I'm immediately uncomfortable."
Yes.
And
I believe that.
And I think this is a level of discomfort that's going to hold me through the next 4 or 5 Gen Cons.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Nice. So So, Alex, your Gen Con trip, was it all play or was it business? What did you have going on at Gen Con?
No, it was a bit of both. I managed to get into one Adventurers League game. So Adventurers League is organized D&D 5th edition. We've got a group who we try to play at least one 4-hour block every year, and I've been doing it for probably 9 years now.
Nice.
So yeah, it's cool.
Not
Like,
bad.
we go there, and everyone's got like a character that only gets pulled out at Gen Con. And so, you know,
Has it been the same characters since the beginning?
yeah.
So when I met you guys, that was post that event,
Yeah.
and it was the character you've been playing for 9 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, the
pretty
thing is,
impressive.
we only play at Gen Con, so our characters are only level 5. So I managed to get into that. I did a bunch of shopping, or did a bunch of browsing. Came home. One of the things I was looking for was a couple new RPG systems, just to kind of broaden my horizons. So I found 3 new systems, that kind of small indie ones that looked interesting.
And those were
Best Left Buried, which is kind of a horror focused.
I know what you did last summer, kind of thing.
No. like old school D&D, like horror in dungeons.
Oh, okay.
So kind of leaning on a simple old school Renaissance D&D vibe, while really focusing more on kind of the terror of dungeon exploration.
Okay.
So
That could be fun.
there's a couple mechanics in there. I was like, man, I was flipping through. I was like, well, this is worth the purchase alone. Then another kind of rules light game called Orbital Blues, which is a sci-fi RPG. They specifically, label themselves as a sci-fi western, and so it's intended to kind of evoke the types of themes or settings that you would see in a Cowboy Bebop or a Firefly.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, sci-fi, yet kind of not low-tech sci-fi, but just sort of like gritty sci-fi.
Yeah, gritty.
Right? Sci-fi that's not chrome, but it's also not laser swords like Star Wars gritty. It's like gritty, like just a bunch of dirtbags flying around in space.
Man, that just sounds like a glorious life to lead.
Sounds like a tagline for an interesting game, right? Dirtbags in space. And then the last one was called What Goes Squeak in the Night. And so there's a whole line of RPGs out there that are called, references Powered by the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
So the Apocalypse World games. This is supposed to be a rules light version of Powered by the Apocalypse, where you play mice who are protecting children from spirits and fairies and things at night.
Yeah.
And so I've got 2 kids who have both expressed an interest in RPGs. It's like, let's get something that kind of caters towards them, is rules light. And so picked up that.
Right on.
So yeah, they were well outside of the norm for my
Those all sound a little outside the norm for, I would say, almost anybody.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, that's the whole point about Gen Con, right? Is that you
100%.
get this opportunity to just wander around and go, what is that? This is never going to show up in a store, my local store.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to find anyone to play this game with me, but a
gotta
lot
have
of
it.
Yeah, well, especially with RPG stuff, right? A lot of it just becomes mechanically, how did they approach this type of game resolution issue?
Right.
So, and then other than that, I spent a full day in one of the open gaming areas running demos of Warzone Eternal.
Very cool.
So yeah, we had a bunch of our backers, a bunch of our Kickstarter backers came out, and I set up a Calendly so that people could sign up for slots.
Yep.
And yeah, I think I ran it 5 demos maybe.
Cool.
So it was good. Yeah, we got to see a bunch of people who were interested in Warzone, longtime backers, brand new backers, or longtime followers, brand new followers, I should say.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was cool. Got to see the game from the perspective of someone who has not been playtesting it for 2 years.
Yep.
So that's interesting, right? Like people who were like, well, explain to me exactly how this works, or why are we doing it this way? And so to be perfectly transparent, there were a couple places where I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to change that when we get back home.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So playtesters, you will have already received the final version of the beta rule set by the time this airs, and actually, hopefully, well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, let's get to that in a
Yeah,
minute.
sorry, almost
Almost transitioned right into the state of the game.
Right into it.
Jeez, you think I'm unnatural?
But you also did something special at Gencon for one of your backers.
Yeah, so at one of the higher backer level tiers for the Kickstarter, there was the opportunity to do dinner and play games with the Resnova design crew. And so one of those backers picked Gencon as the place to do so, and he had a busy convention, so it ended up being dinner,
Okay.
which was great, right? So we went to St. Elmo's, and it was the Resnova crew, and then a couple of the, well, Rick was there as well, and a couple of the other.
I'm everywhere.
Yes.
If listeners
show
haven't
up
figured that out
everywhere.
yet, I'm everywhere.
But yeah, so dinner was great, and as part of that, right, those backers got a early release prototype version of one of the faction starters.
Okay.
So he picked Bauhaus.
Oh, yeah?
He got a really, really nicely pulled together prototype set. Still, cast or 3D printed as opposed to
Sure.
actual CO cast material, because we're
Not quite there yet.
not even remotely close to the point of pulling final models out of molds. But there was a special part as well, the presentation, which I'm actually gonna bury for a second here, because we're gonna write a post to throw it up on the Resnova blog.
Oh, that makes complete sense.
But yeah, so it was cool. It was cool to be able to.
Like in the room, because Jeff has kind of joined us too off mic so far.
Hey.
There's been a lot of Kickstarters in this room that we've all backed. And to be able to do something like that with the developers, with the company, I think that's a really cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah. No, for us, it was cool, right? I mean, just the fact that there's a level of interest in that, right? Like,
Yeah.
we had similarly, we had one of our demos. There was a guy apparently had been playing Warzone as long as I had.
Yeah.
And so Chris, shout out to you if you listen to this. We ended up talking afterwards. He's like, he was very, very enthused about the game. But one of the things that he said, which I don't know, it's probably boastful or something, was like, well, can we get a picture together? He's like, I've never met a game designer before. I'm like, hey, you still haven't met a game designer, right? Because I mean, that's the thing that's interesting, right? Is game design, right? Feels like it's something that's done by some group of people over here, and you're a fan, you play the game, but really the kind of the step to being like, oh no, I'm a game designer, is something as simple as designing a game.
Yeah.
And so the recognition of that was like, well, okay, the demo was great. I was happy to talk to you. Sure, we can take a picture, but that aspect of like, oh, you're a game designer. Like, well, I guess I am. So,
Well, very cool.
but yeah, so the opportunities to meet people like that, to have the dinner, to just kind of engage with the community of Warzone players, several new players, and existing. It was good. I mean, it's the reason why we've been going to these shows, right? Adepticon was the first one. It was great. Origins was awesome. Gencon was great. And for those who are listening, we'll be at PAX Unplugged next. Resnova will actually have a booth there. Nerds.
It's always nerds.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not making it very far west. But, that's small steps.
And PAX Unplugged is a good show, though.
It's a great show. It's a really different show than any of the other
them.
ones.
So speaking of PAX, what are you going to be doing there? Are you going to be kind of in a game area the same as you were at Gen Con, or?
No, we actually have a booth.
You have a full-on booth over there. Okay, awesome.
Yep, we'll have a 10 by 10. So PAX was the very first show I ever exhibited at. Resnova, right after we kind of spun the company up and we were still working on Dungeon Slayer.
Yeah.
We ran demos for the very first time at the very first PAX Unplugged. Since then, I've been back every year, and a couple times I've split a booth with our friends over at Ricktok Games, but nothing official until this year. So it's cool, right? Kind of looping back around after a 4 or 5 year kind of hiatus.
Okay.
So yeah,
Nice.
Well, cool. Any other thoughts about Gen Con for you guys? Like, actually, you know what? Rick brings up something that we talked about before.
Did I?
Yes. Alex, what was your favorite part about Gencon this year?
My favorite part of Gen Con.
Yeah. I mean, you've been going for 30 years.
Literally, it was just hanging out. I
Yeah.
mean, so whether it was with the handful of people who came out for the demos, scheduled the demos and played through, and just getting to chat about that.
Your level 5 character.
Yeah. Or again, seeing my buddies that I see like once a year at this show. I mean, it's, I've always jokingly described myself as having like some weird shepherd dog personality, and that like I've got these people that I know, and I need to like pull them all together because I need to know what everybody's doing, right? And I need to make sure everybody's having a good time. And so we had several times where I got to do that, kind of have this convergence of these different social groups, right? Whether it was dinner with the Kickstarter backer, or dinner the first night of the show at Buka, right? We had a bunch of my old friends. Brian Steele joined us.
Yeah.
Those opportunities at Gen Con. It's the only time I get to do that with those diverse groups of friends of mine. So it was the socialization. I mean, not to be all kind of mushy or something, but yeah.
Well, I mean,
great.
So obviously we're talking mainly about Warzone Eternal, and this is on Deadzone the podcast. But a couple of you guys had an amazing experience at Gen Con that I wanted my listeners to hear about.
Yeah.
So Rick, tell me about, as Jeff is
Putting on some
spinning
headphones.
in, get the headphone on so he can jump in, and I can actually hit the button so he's actually there.
All right.
You guys had an amazing experience at Gen Con at Conquest. Right? At their booth.
The Conquest booth.
Oh, yes. Because if you were going to ask me what my favorite, I had two.
Yes, I know you did.
And the one at the Conquest booth was easily my favorite thing.
And that's what I want my listeners to hear about.
Right. So it was literally seeing Alex when he was 12. Right?
Oh, that's a much better spin on that.
He did look like a 12-year-old Alex.
Or seeing Alex when he first saw Warzone back in 95?
1995.
Right? So it was seeing a 1995 Alex find his game. Right? But it was this young 12-year-old boy who had spent like $100 on some product.
Yep.
And then was given the opportunity to draw out of a prize hat to win something, and it was something that wasn't even available. It's not available even yet in stores that I'm aware of.
Yeah, it's about to come out.
Yeah, like in the next week. I think.
Right.
Yeah. But at Gen Con was not out nor available, and it was the Triceratops riders for the
Thunder Riders.
The Thunder Riders for the
Woodrune.
Wardrune. Is that right?
Woodrune.
Woodrune. I don't speak orc, so filthy beast.
You don't speak English either, but that doesn't stop you from trying.
This is true. So he wins these Triceratops riders, or Thunder Riders, and he just loses his stuff. It's just like, oh my god, and he's shaking.
Oh yeah,
it was such a wonderful.
It was
experience.
He says, I can't believe this is real. I can't believe this is real.
Yeah, it was amazing, and all I could think about is when you talk about Alex, when you talk about your finding Warzone and how you like the next year, or like the person demoing it and stuff for the company or whatever, is like that kid is now locked into this hobby for the rest of his life.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
In some capacity, because of that, because they treated him like he was a prince of gaming.
They did.
It was so like wholesome.
They hyped it up big time. They really played into it. And
so shout outs to Ronan. His first name is Ronan, which is again way cooler than any kid should be.
He goes, I'm not cool. I'm just the weird kid at school with the lizards.
It's like, what? It's like, come on, bud.
Well, it sounds like also then it's shout out to Parabellum, right?
Parabellum.
Yeah.
100%.
Daryl McKay, huge shout out to Daryl over at
and his whole team.
Yeah,
That's the incredible thing about this industry, right? I mean, these games are they're transformational.
Yeah.
So in an opportunity like that, you're right. I mean, it's not even. And I know that you guys are not making light of it, but it's not even just like it's a funny story. It's like, man, this is just an awesome story.
And this is our space.
Yeah.
And this is our space, right?
Right.
That when you see a young, it could have been a young man, a young woman, could
Whatever.
have
It
been
didn't
anybody.
matter,
In that,
passionate kid.
right.
Yeah.
Who is grateful. Mm-hmm. And like I said, they treated him like he was a prince of gaming. and it was just beautiful.
Right. And it wasn't funny to watch. It was fun to watch.
It was fun.
Right?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I mean, it was
Yes.
just super exciting to watch, just this pure elation on this kid's face, It
was awesome. So good.
It's like seeing him get that Christmas present he was always wanting on Christmas morning. Kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It was his Red Ryder BB gun.
It sure was. He ain't putting his eye out with things.
That's right.
But yeah, so big shout out to Parabellum, and for everybody listening, go give them some support, because if they're going to treat their fans like that, they're worthy of our support.
For sure. No,
Absolutely.
no doubt about it.
Well, right
Great.
on.
It was great.
Awesome. With that, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about actual Warzone.
I don't get to
Eternal.
talk about my favorite part.
That was yours.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was not.
Oh!
That was his number 2.
That was my number.
Oh, that
two.
was your number
Yeah.
2, wasn't it?
All right.
No, we're not going to take a break yet, because we want
Okay.
to hear Jeff's
Well, I was just
number
saying,
1.
I mean, it's a
no,
little
because
bit
he's
different.
here.
It was a very cool moment. So.
Oh, duh. His daughter.
Yeah, my daughter. She's a huge fan of the Dimension 20 podcast or cast. It's not a podcast.
Yeah.
It's a video cast.
Live play.
The live play D&D, right. And so she had, I had asked her a few weeks ago if she wanted to come to Gencon with us. She's like, nah, I'm good. I'm like, okay. And then about a week before, she comes in and she's almost in tears. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And she's like, well, I just found out that Brennan from Dimension 20 is going to be at Gencon, and his panel sold out already. I'm like, oh, that stinks. I said, well, all right, well, bummer, but is what it is. And then I reached out to Rick. I said, hey, do you know Brennan? And he goes, no, I don't, but we have some mutuals. So let me see what I can do. And then he hits me up about 15 minutes later, and he goes, okay, well, hey, Brennan has a panel at this time on Saturday. Right after that's a party put on by some people that he's associated with. No promises, but decent chance he'll be there. I got us on the list. I said, oh, that's cool. So then I went to my daughter. I said, okay, Hayes, her name is Hazel. I said, so, Rick says that Brennan is likely to come to this party after his panel. We're on the list. If you want to come, you're welcome to come. No promises, but there's a chance. And if you were to run into him, it's going to be a way better experience than going to his panel anyway, right? So, she's like, well, let me think about it.
Yeah.
So the next day she goes, okay, I'll go. It's like I'll twist your arm, right?
Exactly.
So she ends up coming out Friday with my wife, and Saturday night we go to the party. There for about 15, 20 minutes, and what do you know? Brennan walks in, and Rick grabs Hazel. He goes, come on, let's go. We're going to go meet Brennan. And got right up to him, and he's like, Rick says, Brennan, I'm Rick, and this is Hazel. She's a big fan.
Hey, and what did Hazel say at that point?
You know what? Credit Hazel. She kept her cool like you wouldn't believe.
Awesome.
She just said, it's really nice to meet you. I'm a big fan.
Right.
I follow all your stuff, blah, blah, blah. Asked him, I guess his wife's pregnant, so she was asking him about that kind of thing. And he was awesome to her.
That's great.
He really...
Gave him 100% of his attention and time.
Right.
In that moment.
It was 2 or 3 minutes, but there were her 2 or 3 minutes.
That's sweet. That's
and
great.
and so we walked away, and then she just started bawling.
And she got a great selfie with him.
She did.
Yep.
Yeah, she got her picture and her moment with the person who means a lot to her. So.
Well, kudos to the two of you,
So-
Rick, for setting that up, Jeff, for making sure you facilitated that. That's awesome. That's going to stick with her. I mean, that's her Gen Con moment.
That's a Gen Con
Yeah,
moment.
that's right.
Yeah.
She better be there next year.
You'd think, right? You'd think. Yeah, it's like.
But it almost seemed like Meg and her were already kind of planning
yeah.
the potential for next
Right.
year, regardless of...
Right. They're like, well, when we come next year, we got to do this and this and this and this. Right. So.
Right.
That's a good sign.
I
for
mean, it
you.
was very much a last second throw together for them. So, I mean, they were a little more bored than the rest of us because so many events are just done.
Sure.
By the time the week of the event is here, there's no real time to get into anything.
Right.
But they made the most of it.
That's
100%.
So in other words, go to Gen Con.
Everybody needs...
Go to Gen Con. And, I mean, I personally believe that if someone goes to Gen Con and they're not sufficiently impressed to want to go back later, that is somebody you need to question.
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
Well, with that, we're going to take a break, and we'll come back and talk a little bit about the Kickstarter.
Yeah, you're allowed to take a break now. I'll let you.
What's up, everyone? I'm Andrew
And I'm Coach,
from FamilyOfGamers777 on YouTube.
and you are listening to Deadzone the podcast with Rick and Brian.
Do you think they'll be upset that our audio is better than theirs?
Nah, Rick will probably just laugh it off. Told you.
All right, welcome back. So, Alex,
Yes,
let's
sir.
dive into the state of the game for Warzone Eternal.
Okay.
So, where is the Kickstarter as far as the backer? Was it backer kit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where is it at with that right now?
So by the time people are listening to this, they should have either just seen the pre-order store, the late backer pledge manager open, or just about to open. So
Yeah, we're kind of in that flux of that
yeah.
week.
So well, one of the issues, the actual pledge manager has been built now for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
But when you do a pledge manager, every single item that you can select has an entry, right?
Yeah.
It has an image. So one of the things that we unlocked in the Kickstarter, right, was 7 different decal sheets for all of the various factions in the game. And we don't want to open this up and say, placeholder image coming soon. So one of the things that meant was we had to go and build 7 different decal sheets.
Yeah.
Now, again, I mean, this isn't a property that has a whole bunch of digital art assets just sitting in a file somewhere that I can just pluck, right?
It does now, though, right?
It does now. So it literally meant, for some people had seen some of the prototype sheets that we had because
Yeah.
we've got the core faction logo for all 7 of our Kickstarter factions. Now, just a sheet with that same logo repeated over and over and over and over. I mean, cool because those things have not really existed before, but of limited utility, right? You want some cool stuff to kind of make your units look
Squad
bespoke.
markings
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
Yeah, sure.
So it meant combing through the rule books and just trying to find what are some of the alternative, symbology that or
The artist drew up over the years kind of thing. Okay,
Yeah.
good idea.
So Bauhaus, right? It's got the cog symbol. Was it just the cog over and over and over? Oh no, that right there, that guy's got like the cog split in half, so it kind of butts up against the rim of his shoulder pad. Or those guys have got the cog smaller against a blue square behind it, right? So trying to identify those things, and now take our core logos, send it over to one of our graphic designers, and say, okay, do these things with it. And so we had to do that for all 7 factions. So I just got final digital art assets about as we're recording this, not in the future. About I think the last ones came in right after Gencon.
Okay.
And so those are now off to Death Ray Design so that they can go and pull them together, figure out how many things they can fit on a sheet, mock up the sheets, and then once they do the mock-ups, then we will have those final images. Those final images, those go into the various spaces in the pledge manager, and then we're done. And so we can kick it out the door.
Awesome.
The pre-order store at that point, we literally can just say live. It's good. So anyone who didn't back when the Kickstarter was running, they can come in. They'll still have still have all the same Kickstarter deals.
Okay.
Right. In terms of pricing, the most of the exclusives that we were selling, right? Obviously, everything that we were giving away for free to certain backer levels won't be available. And then at the same time we open the Pledge Manager store, the actual backer kit will go to backer kit for approval. And then it gets pushed out for what's known as a smoke test. So a limited number of backers get an invite to run through and make sure that everything's working.
Everything works.
And then today we're recording this on the 15th. The hope is to have this thing out by the end of the month.
Awesome.
So again, hope, right? But we're a small operation with a lot of moving levers here. So we're trying to keep those things operating smoothly.
And one of those levers that you're hopefully going to have out with that is like a condensed rules. Is that?
So no, it's actually going to be the full rule section. So it's kind of our beta, right?
Okay.
So it'll be all the rules to play the game, all of the army lists for all of the units that were released as part of the Kickstarter.
Okay.
And all the scenarios, right? So basically, this is the final text prior to going to final copy editing and layout.
Awesome.
So now, I mean, obviously, part of that is just to see, okay, what do people think?
Yeah.
The primary reason we're opening it up is we've heard a lot of people say, if I don't quite understand what the point system is, I don't know which models to buy, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've always bought into miniatures Kickstarters based upon the idea of like, what is it that I find interesting looking, and then just bought those.
Yeah.
But I fully understand that some people are like, no, I want to buy into a force, right? I want to buy into an army, right?
Different people process things different ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I would be on the same page as you. Is like, ooh, those are pretty.
Ooh, shiny,
exactly.
ooh, shiny, ooh,
Yeah.
shiny.
Hashtag Mirrorman.
Yeah. No, exactly. But yeah, exactly. People process things differently, and
It depends on how into it I am,
Yep.
right? If it's something I'm really into, I'll be like you. I don't care. If it's something that I'm just looking to just put together that one army just to play the game with my buddies,
Yep.
I'll be like, all right, I gotta plan this out.
Yep. No, exactly right. So we'll facilitate that. So there will be all the points, assigned to the different units, their stats, their special abilities laid out. There will be a thorough understanding of how the game plays, because this is effectively the final draft of the rules.
Nice.
Sweet.
So yeah, that should come out about the same time the backer kit comes out.
Wow.
So there will not be a situation where somebody is saying, well, okay, great, I got the backer kit, I can select my models, but I still don't know what these things cost. It'll come out simultaneously.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so end of August should be end of August,
busy.
beginning of September should be pretty busy for the Kickstarter community for the game.
So what are you expecting? A lot of people they don't expect a big like surge of more backers or anything. But do you have a number that you're like hoping you can get in regards to comparison to what you actually got in the Kickstarter?
Well, so most of
I feel like there's a math assigned to this that people have already figured it out.
Well, yeah, and most of the stuff that I've seen when doing research or when talking to various Kickstarter consultants is you can oftentimes expect up to 25 to 30, 25% to a third more than what you raised during the
Oh,
Kickstarter.
that's impressive.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, it becomes another big chunk, and so there's a couple things there, right? So one of the people I talked to at Gencon was a retailer who had backed us, right? So the retailer's only backed at a small dollar amount, just as kind of a placeholder, and so they're going to be able to then select all the stuff that they want. So you've got all of those people. I've had multiple people reach out to us since the Kickstarter saying, I missed it. Is there going to be a late pledge option? So all of those people are going to be lined up, and then a lot of people who just backed like rulebook or just a box set because they just kind of wanted to get their place in line.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so now with the backer kit, they should be able to select more. So
Flesh out their actual order.
yeah, exactly.
Scary.
Very.
Yeah, no, right. It's hard.
So for the late backers, are you giving them the same exact deal as the ones who backed the Kickstarter to begin with, or are
So
they
it'll be the same.
missing out on a little something?
Well,
or?
there's a couple things they'll miss out on, primarily exclusives, right?
Okay.
So when you open up the pledge store, right, you're selecting, the late backer store or
Right.
the pre-order store.
Sure.
You're selecting the individual items.
Right.
So some of the stuff like there were some small price breaks when you bought the larger bundles. The bundles aren't there. You're selecting individual items at that point. So I mean, it's not huge, but there's a small price difference. We gave away the Brotherhood Archangel pilot as like a objective marker.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a free giveaway
for the Kickstarter backers.
Yeah,
So if you're a latecomer, you miss out on those little things.
You'll
like
have to
that.
pay for it, so
Yeah,
it'll
right.
still be there.
Oh, okay.
But you just don't get it as a free add-on.
All right.
So I believe almost all of the content will be in there. including the opportunity to buy the condensed or the collected fiction. But the free fiction, free PDFs of the fiction, those were for Kickstarter backers.
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, so there are some slight differences,
Sure.
but for the most part, if you're like, oh man, I really want to be able to play Warzone Eternal, everything that the Kickstarter backers were able to get in order to play the game
Right.
will still be available.
Okay.
Nice.
Sweet.
Yeah, so no, we're looking forward to it. It does mean that it's hard to actually figure out what your production quantities are because everything that Kickstarter says right now is utterly meaningless.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how, with those numbers or the potential numbers, where are you going to land as far as like we're only going to have it open for an X amount of time because you got to have those hard numbers at a certain,
Right.
Well,
for a certain point, right?
Well, a certain point, but I mean that certain point really is this is the time when we are pulling figures out of the molds, right? So all of the work up to that point, we have enough backers and we have enough of each individual model that we need to produce that we're probably going to be producing them as single model molds. Right, so not family mold. So we're not going to produce a mold that makes this box set.
Right.
We're going to produce a mold that makes Bauhaus Blitzer A.
And then make like 10 of them in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the idea there being there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to do that.
Right.
But then once we have those, it doesn't matter how many we get of any one box set.
Right.
We're just producing X number of this guy. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And the seal cast machine is really good. As long as you've got a number of different molds that you can run through so that each mold can cool down a bit, you can almost produce miniatures as fast as you can put the mold into the machine.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, like once you're up and running, I mean, you can produce thousands of figures a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's
And
insane.
off of like one machine.
One machine.
Ridiculous.
It is. It's one of the advantages of this particular technology.
I think Thunderforge needs one of those.
I need to find out with Nelson from Mythic Americas, who's been buying up a bunch of them.
Yeah, used.
Yeah, people are like,
all these guys that invest into it, and then they decide it's just too much work for him. He's like, "I'll buy that off you."
There's a skill involved there.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fortunately, the guy we're working with was one of the first purchasers of a COCast machine in the U.S.
Right.
So he's figured
All
out
the experience,
He's figured out just about all
Sure.
what can break with it and how do you fix it.
right. So, how can you avoid the breakage?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just good skills to have, right?
Yep.
I don't know if Thunderforge actually needs one of those.
I think for each one that you get, you need to get a guy like I know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you want to make money with it, at least,
Right.
right?
Where it just sits in the room and does nothing, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where we're at for right now.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, hopefully some more cool stuff for people to check out soon.
Right on. So one of the things we've been doing on each of these episodes is we talk a little bit about the game and then we jump into some lore.
Sure.
It's funny that Jeff is on here because Jeff is one of the main guys that always reminds me of how I always go for the evil faction.
It's just the truth.
It really is kind of the truth. So with that, I'd like to know about the Dark Legion's apostle,
Sure.
like specifically Algaroth, because that's so of the 7 factions, that's one of the factions, right?
Correct. Yep, that's one of our launch factions. There are technically 5 apostles of the Dark Legion.
Okay.
Elgaroth is the largest and the one that engages the most directly in warfare with the corporations. The other 4 apostles all generally have their unique ways of messing with humanity. So Elgaroth made the most sense as the representative of the Dark Legion as part of our first Kickstarter.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about the lore of that. How did the whole Dark Legion show up for one?
Sure. So yeah, because Mutant Chronicles at its core, right, is kind of a good kind of commentary on human nature and human behavior.
Yeah.
The Dark Legion were unleashed into our universe because of Imperial. So just like, right? So just like the United Kingdom of reality and its kind of exploration of the world and their dominion over other lands. Imperial and Mutant Chronicles has a tendency to kind of just wander around the universe and say, yep, that looks interesting. We're going to take that now. And one of the things that they were one of the last corporations to really leave Earth to get a foothold. So at that point, Capital had Mars, Bauhaus had Venus, Mishima had Mercury. So they were trying to find places that they could, plant their flag on.
Very un-British.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I can see exactly what the writers are doing here, but at the same time, you're like, you don't want to say, hey, all of our British fans, you guys are the bad guys.
But they are.
We'll leave those as differing perspectives. But so one of the things that they ended up doing, right, is pushing out to the boundary of the solar system.
Yeah.
And so, they went past Pluto, right? They discovered this other planet orbiting even further out than Pluto.
Oh, okay.
And it's this astral body, because I realize we can't call Pluto a planet still, right? So
we can.
If Pluto's not a planet, then Nero, this place even further out, is even less so. And ultimately they find these ruins there, kind of alien ruins on this planet way out there. And there's like this perfectly unblemished steel tablet just in the ground. And Imperial being Imperial are like, oh, okay. And so they mess around with it and
find out.
The entire crew of that Imperial Conquistador exploration ship just disappears. And there's like this one radio transmission that is received by like a far out Imperial communication station. And that's it.
So very Event Horizon.
Yes, very much
style.
So. And with that, all of a sudden, the dark symmetry is unleashed into the solar system, which is what corrupts all AI machines.
Yeah.
Which, at this point right now, the corporations had much like modern day culture here, AI had been incorporated into all sorts of business practices,
different things.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden that becomes unreliable and it's corrupted, and so there's not quite a full dark age, but there's this sudden scrambling by humanity to redo the way things operate, right?
Yeah.
Kind of Battlestar Galactica-ish.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not like going all the way back to some feudal dark ages, but it's like, oh crap, we got to back up. We got to back up. We got to engage.
Got to go back to floppy disks.
Yes, exactly right. And
please,
what was the name of the planet again?
Nero?
Not Nibiru?
No, it was Nero.
So in ancient aliens theory, many ancient alien theorists theorized that there is the rogue planet, the planet X or Nibiru, which is the home of the Anunnaki. So basically, the Dark Legion is the Anunnaki.
These are words I'm unfamiliar with.
That's okay.
You're not alone, Alex.
Rick, it's just gibberish. I told you don't speak English.
Okay, all right. You're right. You did mention that.
Sukalos.
Again, still there.
But so and then eventually what follows is the actual unleashing of. So Imperial then goes back later, messes around with stuff again, and
because they didn't learn the first time.
Exactly, and this time they literally break open the portal that leads to whatever this other dimension is that the Dark Legion calls their home. And the Dark Legion is this multi-dimensional force, right? So it's not just like, oh, we open up a portal to some alien planet. It's like literally the way these things operate is alien. They're not aliens. They're like the way they function is like not comprehensible by humanity, right?
Yeah.
They're a truly different dimensional creature, and their forces are built out of creatures that they have gathered from other dimensions that they have invaded, right? So they show up and they've got the ability to raise the dead and turn them into these zombified soldiers, which are the undead legionnaires.
Yeah,
they've got the ability to take human cultists, people who willingly or unwillingly find themselves in the grips of the Dark Legion, and they're able to mutate them, turning them into the Necromutes or the Centurions, or the most worthy are actually the Praetorian Stalkers. Those are at their core, it's a human nervous system that's like integrated into this like techno-organic battle suit. So it's this amalgamation of all sorts of different
and I speak
technologies.
gibberish?
Yeah.
He is a mitigator. Right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Good Lord, that sounded amazing, actually.
Well, it is. It is. It's amazing. The background is sweet. And so that's what Elgroth is it's the Apostle of War. And so he it's his minions that are able to create these various living machines that they use to do battle with. And then he also shares a lot of those with his sibling apostles, right? None of the rest of them, like I said, generally tend to take to the field in mass formations. So to the extent that they need people to guard their citadels or their, cultist hangouts or whatever, cultist hangouts.
That's right. There's different clubs out in the city.
It's where your parents home you don't go. Don't go to that cultist hangout. So Elgroth supplies some of these forces to the other apostles. So you'll find necromutants in a force of Ilion, or the Izogul is used as kind of a giant shock trooper for, again, other apostle forces. Yeah. But yeah, so Elgroth is that, the most warlike. They also have the largest cult base.
Okay.
That's the Temples of Destruction are all made up of humans who have pledged their loyalty to Elgroth, probably hoping that they're going to be elevated into, these creature status.
Nice.
Yeah, they're cool. I mean, yeah, they're cool.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, enjoy.
I'm just sitting here trying to process a human nervous system integrated with a electrical techno-organic battle suit.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus, how many Star Trek scripts have you read? The techno-babble there was just off the charts. I love it.
But yeah, so that's Elgroth.
Well, right on. Well, I think with that, that's a wrap for us this episode.
Sweet.
And next time we come on, we'll probably be talking about the backer kit a lot more.
Yeah, hopefully we've got all sorts of hopefully it's in the past and it's gone smoothly, and yeah,
fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks for listening, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.